I really caution parents to avoid fear-based approaches to media. It's
Hmm.
not going to get you anywhere.
Your child is not ready for a smartphone until you have talked to them about graphic content, about violent content.
Millions and billions of videos might be uploaded to any given platform.
Yeah.
Most of them might get like 1 or 0 views,
Hmm.
right? Families have more control than I think they realize.
I was even looking for this and I got on insert platform name here. I mean, virtually all of them, and saw this that, I wasn't quite prepared to see.
I would encourage these platforms as much as they can to continue to filter out the news imagery that has like the bloody violence, but not necessarily the messaging of what happened. That's not easy to do. Prevention science has shown over and over again that the just saying no approach never works. I use all of the media platforms that my daughter is allowed to use. Before she uses them, I use them. The people on the ground who are training those models have an extreme level of responsibility to err on the side of caution and conservativeness so that these kids can have fun and not be led down any rabbit holes that aren't safe.
Today on the Tech Translator Podcast with Parent ProTech, we have the developmental psychologist and tech policy leader, Dr. Tracy Elizabeth. And I'm really excited for this conversation, whether you're a parent, whether you're a leader at a school, a leader in your community. I think there's going to be something relevant, something applicable, something practical that you can take away from this. And as we jump in, I just want to give a little background on Dr. Elizabeth. Now, she has more degrees than I have friends, but her expertise is vast, ranging from studying education, even getting a master's in education at the University of South Carolina, all the way up through a doctorate in human development and entertainment media from Harvard. And just to cue you into her professional accomplishments on the tech and content side, at Harvard, she led research projects related to children's media. She spent time at Netflix, where she directed the development of the company's global maturity ratings. Get this, yes, overseeing the team that led that effort. And she helped organize content based on how mature the themes were in a show or film. She founded MediaGeist, a media policy consultancy where she consulted with content executives and regulators on everything ranging from youth safety policies, maturity ratings, to even building products in such a way that would be family friendly. And most recently, she spent 5 years at TikTok, where she led the global family safety and developmental health teams. That's a mouthful, but her work included developing policies to train AI models and working with human moderation. And she even established the company's content classification department, which is dedicated to thinking about whether content may need to be filtered based on the age of a user. Okay, that's a lot. What does all this mean? She is attuned to the tension and the trade-offs that exist between growing a platform, keeping users engaged, and protecting youth, protecting kids. Dr. Elizabeth is someone I'm a big fan of because she also shares a love of South Carolina. And I love her focus and commitment to the positive potential of tech. She's done a lot of research, but she's also been behind the curtain in some of today's largest media and tech companies. And to top it off, she's also a mom of her daughter. And so she brings the professional side, but also the personal side. As we were preparing for this, there's a quote I want to share that she shared in our last call. And she said this: "The idea that tech is evil and bad is not quite getting us anywhere." And that's what I love about Dr. Elizabeth. She's realistic about the real challenges that exist with tech, but very optimistic about where we can go. So, Dr. Elizabeth, welcome. We are so glad to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
I mean, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's
Of course.
such a treat to be here. And now I feel like I need to hire you to be my PR person or
Let's,
agent because wow,
hey,
thank you.
hype man, I'm here for it. Let's, well, as we're jumping in, I want to rewind because I'm really intrigued by your career. Before you were in tech, working at, in these big roles, doing all this research, you were in education, right?
That's right. So I started my career as an elementary school teacher. I taught
Elementary school teacher.
third,
Wow.
fourth, and fifth grade reading. I was a literacy specialist. I'm the oldest of, I think it's 19 cousins. And so my whole life, I've been around kids and loved
Yeah.
kids. And so I always kind of gravitated towards young people. And yeah, so I was an elementary school teacher. And it's really interesting because what I did is I would reward my students. I call them my kids. Teachers will be like, my
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
I'd reward my students with a movie party when they finished a difficult text.
No way.
Yeah,
That's neat.
it was, and so there's books like Robin Hood. Robin Hood has several
Oh, yeah.
different movies because of Winn-Dixie. So there's all these book and film relationships, and what started as something that was supposed to just be a reward quickly turned out to be a great educational opportunity. So what I
Hmm.
saw is that these films actually brought all sorts of amazing opportunities for us to then discuss what was the author's purpose, what was the plot, how did the plot change between these media, and then what social, emotional opportunities for growth do we have by discussing these media. So that's kind of what eventually led me over to the media world.
I'm married to an educator, so I can relate to being in that world. But I think it's so neat from your background. If I could pick a person to be in the room where it happens, so to speak, at some of these companies, making these decisions, informing policy, forming research, it would be someone who's been in education or been around kids. So I think you were so uniquely positioned for the work that you have gone on to do over these past years. So how neat is that? And also, I just love film too. I'm with you. My favorite class in college was screenwriting workshop. There's so much emotion, so many lessons we can learn just
Yeah.
about life. I
Yes.
think when we think about content ratings, because I know a lot of what your career has been dedicated to has been
Yes.
reviewing content and determining what themes are appropriate, things like that. I know there's this whole lexicon of terms like taxonomy and things that maybe we'll touch on today that come with that. I want to jump in looking at something that we've seen in the news recently, and that's Instagram announced that we've had teen accounts for about a year, but they announced that now all teens on Instagram will be defaulted into a content moderation that is filtered for that of like a PG-13 rating.
Yes.
And
Yes.
now for a lot of families that we work with, Parent ProTech across the country, I mean, they like that. I see a lot who are excited about that, but I'm just intrigued. And I think so many of us are curious, like, what is going on behind the scenes? Like, what, when Instagram says that, what are human moderators having to do? What are AI systems having to do to
Mhm.
make that actually work?
What I want to start with is huge kudos to Instagram for this move
Hmm.
because I think it's a really smart, good move. And from my experience in media and human development, adolescent development, this
Hmm.
is where these companies are going to go anyways. Because what we're thinking about is we've got this beautiful merging of tech and entertainment. So these tech companies, social media platforms, etc., they really are a form of entertainment now, these digital spaces.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that you would start to think about, well, what are best practices within established industry
Hmm.
that have been created to not just protect young people from themes that might make them feel uncomfortable, but also to traction up trust with their parents and families that that's going to be a space where
Hmm.
their kids and teens aren't going to be exposed to things that make them uncomfortable or aren't okay for their family. There are pros and cons to this approach, but what is really important to think about is that what we know is that there is a baseline of what is developmentally, I don't really love the word appropriate,
Hmm.
developmentally optimal for
Okay.
teenagers. Yeah, and it's only, and that's like a nuanced like academic thing. And you'll see the age appropriate terminology a lot. I think there's something to be said about like who decides what is appropriate and whose responsibility is that. And
Yeah.
I think it's the families and the family culture's choice.
Hmm.
However, what we know is that there are themes across developmental psychology that tend to be less comfortable or safe for teenagers and kids. Those themes
Sure.
include graphic violence,
Hmm.
right? Like seeing something that's really graphic can be incredibly disturbing to a young person, no
Yeah.
matter where in the world you're from or where you were born. And because the pathways in an adolescent brain are still developing, having exposure to that type of like traumatic imagery can lead to more permanent anxiety, depression, etc. So we want to be really careful everywhere to prevent graphic imagery and other highly mature themes from being shown to teens. However, there's differences across the world in regards
Sure.
to, yeah, like what's culturally comfortable. Like
Mm-hmm.
what one family perceives or one culture perceives to be okay
Yeah.
for a young person. Yeah. So I think that's where, when you talk about the back end, getting into the nitty gritty of how are these big companies, including Meta, going to contend with what's culturally accepted as like 413 plus, that'll start to
Yeah.
be complicated.
Wow. Yeah, that was my follow-up question because
Okay.
my
Yeah.
wife and I love to travel and I think we've hit like 26 countries. But one
Congrats.
thing I learned the more we travel is I think we're all the same in so many ways, but also I'm just constantly surprised by things that I might have just taken for granted as widespread here in the US that
Yeah.
you go to Singapore or go to Eastern Europe and it's just different
It's different.
and different things are acceptable, different things are okay.
Yeah.
So what is for a company like a Netflix, TikTok, Meta, will they have is it a different policy for each region, for each country? Like how is that?
Excellent question. So my prediction, what I'll say is that what we'll probably see across all of these companies, and my guess is that we will also see all of these companies start to develop more and more types of rating systems.
Hmm,
They're going to start with some sort of broad swath.
hmm,
What is generally accepted across the globe for this age demographic? Because it is so hard to scale out nuance. So,
yeah.
what I think they'll do is they'll start with what tends to be aligned across regions. And then with time, and probably from a business perspective, what markets they have the most users or, like account holders, they'll then lean into those markets and those markets' cultural sensitivities and
Hmm,
probably have slightly different moderation outputs depending on what country you're in. Machines also review content. So, like, how do we
hmm.
train these machines to see these differences? And then what type of output does that give a person depending on where in the world they are?
Yeah. Also, I imagine the challenge of a Meta or TikTok and having so much user-generated content compared to a
Yes.
Netflix, where at least you have more of a curated collection. That has to
Yes.
present a whole new set of challenges. And also, what I find a lot of times when we stumble upon, or we spend a lot of time on many social media platforms. We work with a lot of families, and whenever we see issues when it comes to content that might have slipped through the cracks through some parental control setting, a lot of times it's content where I feel like maybe there was some sort of sarcasm or some sort of
Yes.
nuance that might have
Yes.
been
Yes.
some context that didn't quite, like an AI might not have been able to pick that up.
Yes.
Or like whether that's even as simple as words that, like, I don't think any students today, they're well aware that, and as opposed to just typing in a vulgar, suggestive word to find content related to that, there are all these slight moderation, variations that are used in text and social media. So how do you account for that as a tech company?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it because figurative language is so complicated. It makes me, I was just like giggling a little bit because I remember back to when I was a teacher. This one of my students, this little boy who was new to the United States and English wasn't his first language. And I remember he was like saying something, and my co-teacher said, "Oh, you're pulling my leg." And he said, "Oh, no, 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 I have not touched your leg." You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know,
A great example.
so yeah, and so here's what so it's not easy. Context really matters. And I think that those are the most difficult when you get down to parsing out speech and language and intention.
Hmm,
That's where you're going to have the most complicated algorithm, like trying to train those models, right? And but you
yeah.
can train the people a little bit more, so like human moderation will be easier to scale out in that capacity. I think that is like quite frankly, speech is the least dangerous, I'll say. So
Hmm.
while those nuances in phrasing do matter and
Sure.
will eventually become incorporated into these filtering systems, what these companies are going to look for first are the big hitters, which is like substance,
Yeah.
violence, nudity, things like that.
Hmm.
Again, the context of the speech matters. And what they're probably going to dig into first are slurs, right? And profanity. So
Yeah.
they'll start with some like broad swath. Again, like, hey, like first of all, we just need to err on the side of caution. And when we detect this language, we either block it, pause it for while someone can review it, right? So they'll get more and more sophisticated with like how to pipeline content that has trigger words that
Hmm.
then probably more sophisticated analysts can review. It's
Hmm.
never going to be a perfect science,
Yeah. Sure.
but I think that they'll get more nuanced as model development and AI
Wow.
detection becomes more sophisticated.
Hmm. Okay, well, and I know you can't speak to any particular company, but from a general sense, does moderation typically happen like maybe some sort of automated machine learning system? It goes through first, then you have layers of human moderators that kind of train, check, verify,
You
then it
got
gets to us. Is that kind of the flow?
Yeah, that's the flow. I mean, the ideal state,
Yeah.
which I believe is pretty ubiquitous across these organizations, the
Okay.
ideal state is that the first thing for user generated content, right? So,
Yeah.
like, not to pop around too much, but you really also called it earlier with companies like Netflix, these big streaming platforms, they have content that's already been produced. And so
Yeah.
they have the luxury of a bunch of time to review and make sure that whatever's going on in that content is organized according to what's most comfortable for the age of their
Hmm.
viewers across the
Hmm.
world.
Yeah.
User generated, right? You make a video and you can upload it immediately. So
Hmm.
that's a different animal that's really complicated but not impossible to handle. And so what happens is that first these machines are trained to like detect like I said before, like the really bad stuff. Oh, do
Yeah.
I see something that's like really gory? Let me just like say no to that right away. And so there's a little bit
Hmm.
of a filtering system. And at a certain point, that system moves over to, okay, this is stuff that probably is better set to be reviewed by humans.
Hmm.
And so some content will get pipelined over to that careful review or even a second review, if not a third, of human moderation. I think what's interesting to think about or for folks to be aware of is that while millions and billions of videos might be uploaded to any given platform,
Yeah.
most of them might get like 1 or 0 views,
Hmm.
right? So,
Most
like,
of them.
yeah, most like the
Yeah.
lion's share over in the 90%, you know?
Wow.
So I would think and recommend for companies is to really focus on like what are those videos that are starting to get a lot of views?
Yeah,
And
the
you
heavy
really got
hitters.
to put some
Huh.
extra care into those, right? So that's an interesting also strategy to consider.
Yeah. Well, and it also makes me think about and this research is a little dated. I know the Wall Street Journal did something looking at TikTok specifically a few years back, and they highlighted how the more niche or the more tailored the algorithm got to a user's interest, the more potential for those outlier videos that
Uh,
might
yeah, like the rabbit, sometimes they call them like
yeah,
rabbit holes.
the further down the rabbit hole,
Yeah,
that's where you're more likely to get to content that might not be as moderated.
like as moderated.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's the flip side of the challenge, just for all of us to be aware of as we're on these platforms. I mean, the more time we're spending, we're more likely to encounter content. And this is not just for TikTok. I mean, just across the board.
Yeah.
When user generated social media network, we're more likely to encounter content that has not been vetted per se.
I think Instagram's effort to do things like, hey, say, hey, we're going
Yeah.
to organize this content here so that we reasonably believe that it's safe for that like 13 to 17 age range, right? So that's
Yeah.
one step. Other,
Mhm.
I put on my own parent hat, but like as you were like reflecting this over to me, and I think, okay, well, there's tools that parents probably have and the teenagers themselves, but, like, have at their disposal to try to help mitigate having your young
Sure.
person be exposed. Yeah. So I would go into those safety settings and look at, like,
Yeah.
what can I do to adjust these settings in ways that probably will increase the odds that my teen isn't going to come across something that makes them uncomfortable.
Mhm, mhm.
I do know,
Yeah,
like, Talk specifically has this really cool filtering mechanism where you can just pick and choose, like, what hashtag terms you don't wanna see.
yeah,
And I find that really brilliant, right? Like, if I you can set it for your teen or the teen can set it for themselves. If you're a vegetarian, you can and you just don't feel comfortable, as an example, getting exposed to meat products, you can just say, like,
yeah,
"Look, I don't wanna see anything that's hashtag cheeseburger." Along those
yeah.
lines of thinking, families have more control than I think they realize when it
That's
comes
good.
to media use.
And even the recommendation for teens, and I share this with people, and I'm surprised how many people don't use these features, is like, if you see a video, if you're on your For You page and a video pops up and maybe it's not bad or explicit or anything, but you're just like, "Yeah, I just don't I'm not really
Yeah,
interested in this." Like,
yeah,
hold your finger down over the
long
video,
press. And not interested.
not interested.
Yeah,
Um,
I even do that myself all the time when I'm like, I get sent a lot of, like, shopping basically ads and videos, and every now and then I'm like, "No, no, no," and I remind myself, I'm like, "Wait, there's a feature on these platforms that helps train my own algorithm." You can
yeah,
train your own algorithm.
it's a great reminder. So I was talking with a mom in Houston, and she said that she'll grab her daughter's phones and open up positive content, and
Yes.
like they know she's doing this, and she's like, "Hey, I'm just gonna let this play for a few minutes, so you'll get recommended more of
That's
this."
such a good strategy. That's super smart. Kudos to that mom for sure.
That's hilarious. I want to move on and talk about kind of your philosophy as a mom, but
Okay.
as we're kind of thinking about more of the technical professional side of this, I want to touch on last month. Now, last month we had the tragic killing of Charlie Kirk, and among multiple other violent incidents over the past year, I think we're seeing more and more the distinction between like legacy media and new media, and how, legacy media might have or still do control the release and the sharing of certain incidents like that, certain tragic, violent, graphic events.
Mhm.
On new media, I
Mhm.
mean, with that one particular incident, I mean, we had 20 plus versions of it
Yeah.
available. And I had multiple parents I talked with, multiple even people on our team who said, "Hey, I wasn't even looking for this. And I got on insert platform name here. I mean, virtually all of them, and saw this that, I wasn't quite prepared to see." So in a moment like that, when something
Mhm.
goes so viral, what happened? I guess is the question. Like, from your view, what would you say? What did many of these platforms miss with that particular case?
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna first answer this from my developmental psychologist hat, and
Okay.
I'm just gonna just point blank say that it is not healthy for young people to be exposed to graphic violence, specifically when it's real. So,
Yeah.
seeing that is very serious, potentially incredibly traumatic in ways that could be very difficult to undo. And I would just kind of plea that all tech companies understand the gravity of that kind of exposure. Then that moves into like the tech executive hat, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, then what do I do if I want to mitigate this? And it gets kind of complicated because there's this challenge of the question of what's newsworthy. And
Hmm.
then, like, what if people have a right to know and see?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
First Amendment. Oh, this is yeah. There's a lot to it.
yeah, and it's just not clean. So my recommendation consistently is there are ways to make sure that nothing, like no actual information is suppressed without
Hmm.
doing what we call like gratuitous violence and gore. So
Sure.
I would encourage these platforms as much as they can to continue to filter out the news imagery that has like the bloody violence, but not necessarily the messaging of what happened. That's not easy to do. It's
Hmm.
not, but it is very possible. The next part is that now I'm going to just put on my parent hat.
Yeah.
As much as, look, like we cannot shield our kids from everything. Like they're going to turn on the nightly news or go up the street. Like they're going to see things that we didn't want them to see. So,
100%.
what can we do to help them process and navigate when those things happen? And that's where I think that parents, caregivers, school psychologists, if we can come together and talk to young people. Hey, did you see anything? Or hey, you might see this.
Hmm.
Let's please talk about it. Like, how are you feeling? Do you have
Yeah.
questions? And just normalize having open conversations with young people where they can process their feelings in a safe space and like get a hug or be told like, hey, yeah, it was disturbing. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I love how you just traded out hats real quick. That was good. But seriously, I think from the tech side of things, it's really intriguing. And I know it sounds so basic for me or for someone who might not understand all the nuance that goes into an algorithm and everything of sharing the news without showing the gore and everything that comes with it.
yeah. I mean, it's a difficult tech companies are in, they've got their work cut out for them. What I
Yeah.
have seen consistently is that you've got companies who hire people who genuinely love kids. Like,
Hmm.
I love kids. I am in this business to do right by them. And
Yeah.
so I do think I hope that it reassures parents out there to hear that there are people who have dedicated their entire lives to protecting and
Hmm.
advocating for kids and teens that work in these companies. And there is a lot of conversation in these companies about like how can we always, always, always do better.
Hmm.
So they're working on it, but it is like this brand new technology that we're all trying to figure out at the same time. It takes a village. We need to get
Yeah.
together and
Yeah.
like work together to try to figure out these solves and how to protect kids and teens.
Yeah, yeah. Going back to what you said about the family piece, I think is so foundational. And it sounds so elementary to say, we need to talk, we need to have the conversations. But the more like when we sit down with the family after, they've had a big incident or something has happened in their home as it relates to tech, a lot of times we just ask like, hey, have you ever talked about what they might encounter or what they probably will encounter online? Have you ever brought that up? Like, have you ever introduced these things? And it makes me think of Dr. Rich. I know we share a shared respect and
He's
appreciation and love for,
fantastic.
yeah,
Yes,
Dr. Michael Rich and
yes,
the pediatrician. And he says, your child is not ready for a smartphone until you have talked to them about graphic content, about violent content, about
yes,
racism, about
yes,
pornography. And he just goes on and on and on. And I think I'm not a parent, but
yes.
you are a parent. And so can you talk about from the developmental psychology perspective, how important is it for parents to be having those conversations?
It's absolutely critical. My daughter is 9 right now, and I've been
Yeah.
having conversations with her about these, sometimes I call them complex themes or like tough topics. But like
Complex themes.
since she could talk, right? But what we do is adjust our language and the gravity of the conversation with her
Yeah.
age, right? You have to normalize in
Hmm.
your family talking about these topics in ways that are like open-ended and not judgmental, right? And
Yeah.
so if you go ahead and I do let my daughter use all sorts of forms of media because what we haven't dug into yet is how positive and wonderful these media opportunities are.
Hmm.
But just like Dr. Michael Rich was saying about, hey, your kid's not ready for a smartphone until you've had these conversations, I agree completely. So
Yeah.
we sit down with her before she got her first iPad. We talked about like, okay, these are basically the rules for you having this iPad, right? And here are
Hmm.
all the cool opportunities that you have within using it.
Let's lean
Yeah.
into this. So
Okay.
you've worked at Netflix, you've worked at TikTok, you've worked with many, many media and content executives as it relates to rating content for what is developmentally optimal. Notice I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
say age appropriate. See,
I think Dr. Rich would agree too.
yes, yes, yes. So how has all of that influenced the way that you parent? Like, and I think we're kind of you've hinted at it already, but like how has Dr. Elizabeth as a parent evolved after being in those spaces?
I mean, the first thing that I am very open-minded and welcoming of different types of digital experiences for my child.
Hmm.
I think if I went back in time and hadn't had all this experience in media and in tech, I would probably join my more conservative
Huh.
media
Interesting.
friends. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's because knowledge is power. And
Hmm.
I do know now how these companies work. But
Yeah.
I've developed my own tips and advice and I follow those, right? So
Hmm.
for me, what I do know is that I've seen enough research and then real life examples of young people who use media in healthy ways, and it has enriched their lives tremendously. And
Yeah.
that's what I want from my daughter. Yeah,
I
like
love it. I'm one of them. I'm like, yeah.
there's so much positivity. So my attitude is let's like let that positivity shine.
Mhm,
But then
mhm.
just like dropping your child off at like this is a very antiquated example, but like dropping your child
Yeah,
off at a shopping mall, right?
yeah, yeah.
You give them the basics. On the way there, they wear a seatbelt, right? When they get there,
Mhm.
you're like, look, you don't talk to strangers and you definitely don't give them your address or your phone number or your social
Yeah,
security number. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So there's these basic kind of like common sense parenting rules that
Mhm.
if you can pull those into the digital space as well,
Yeah,
there's all sorts of great opportunity for your kid or your teen to like thrive in those spaces and connect
that's
with
great.
friends and be
That's
creative.
great. Yeah, I think that a lot of the issue stems from sometimes we take for granted, or many people I find assume that. Well, I hear everybody talk about Roblox. We'll pick on Roblox for example. I hear everybody talk about Roblox. I just assume it's fine. Here's Roblox. Have fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that relates to my one of my favorite. Actually, I think my favorite tip that from your top 10 tips for caregivers that I want to share, that is one that we share all the time at Parent ProTech too, is hey, get on the digital spaces that your kids
Yes.
are using. If they want to get on Roblox, or do it
Yes.
with them even. But
Yes.
sit down, take a little time, even 20, 30 minutes just to get in that space
Yes.
and try to play the game, try to navigate the app,
Yes.
do the things that you would imagine they are going to be doing. And I find that very quickly you don't have to be that tech aware to at least get a general idea of,
Get an
oh,
idea.
yeah,
Yeah. My advice to parents always is, and I even tell like my girlfriends when we're going out for coffee or a glass of wine, I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
hey, like know the rules and use the tools, like use these things. So
Hmm.
I live by that. I mean, even I think my daughter was 5 and we got a Nintendo Switch and we started at that
Yeah,
point with like, yeah, like we did family Mario Kart, right? We had family game night.
that's awesome.
We
Yeah,
also
yeah.
it's so fun too. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, the other reason I use all of the media platforms that my daughter is allowed to use. Before she uses
Wow.
them, I use them. So I can get a better understanding of what the environment's like and I can figure out if there's safety settings that I want to turn on, how to do that
Mhm,
and what it'll
mhm.
do.
Yeah.
So we've just normalized for her, like, okay, we're going to be in here with you. And what that does is opens up super cool opportunities for bonding,
Hmm.
Like it's super cool. Like I now understand, like, oh, you like this app because of these silly jokes, right? So I'm getting to know your sense of humor. And
Yeah.
now I know you're like really good at like, creating outfits on this one little game. There's so many ways to get to know your child as well
Uh,
through these platforms. Yeah.
so, and I love what you're highlighting. Like, test the app out, try it out, but don't stop there. So, it
Yeah.
sounds like in your house, like it's just acceptable. You're just regularly checking in. You're regularly asking these questions. Like,
Yeah.
what does that look like?
Yeah. And I do that on purpose. I mean,
Hmm.
at least a couple times a week, I'll ask her about she's a gamer. She loves gaming. So I'll
Yeah.
ask her, what's going on. She's not 13 yet, so I don't want to misrepresent. Like, I don't let her be on any of the platforms that like you're not supposed to be on until you're 13. So like
Sure.
she does not and will not have TikTok, right? Or Instagram,
Hmm.
or any of that
Hmm.
stuff until she's of that age. And
Yeah.
then even then I'll check in first and like we'll make a decision based on what's going on and how she is at that point in her life. But what I really try hard to do and what I recommend to parents is that you've got to have conversations and try to have like 85% of them be really positive, right? So if you're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, what are you doing on that
Oh,
app?"
that's good.
Yeah, and it's like a 40.
Like judgment free.
Yeah,
Judgment free.
judgment free. So then you
Hmm.
get all this like not social capital, but basically like parental capital. You're like, you know what I
That's
mean?
good. That's
Yeah.
good.
So then when you wanna play your chip and be like, "No, no," right?
Yeah.
They trust
You've
you,
built
and I'm
up
like,
that
"Alright, she's
equity.
reasonable. I get it." So, I do a lot of that. My husband as well. We try to, like, lean into the positivity and, like, not make her in any way feel like it's bad to use these social spaces because it's not.
Yeah.
And then she respects us and listens. And I'm like, hey, no, that's not okay. We're not going to do that. And she's like, okay.
Yeah, there's your psychology background shining through. That's really good. So for parents, so let's sit here for a second. Okay, think about that. So build build up lots of those little positive conversations.
Yes. Yes.
And then when the tough ones come, hopefully they're received better, right? Like that's
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like you have to monitor and like traction up your own credibility with your kid,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like they are doing a calculus of how
Yeah.
extreme or unreasonable are you. They may or may not be right, but
Mhm.
I guarantee that if you approach your child, really frankly with any type of conversation, if you approach them with an open mind and like, hey, this is like positive and fun, when it's time to have the deeper conversation, they're so much more likely to say, okay, like I
Mm,
trust you right now that what you're talking to me about is not just because you're like a paranoid mom. It's because
yeah.
you've identified a place where I need to be protected, and that's what you're doing.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so much more effective. I really caution parents to avoid fear-based approaches to media. It's
Hmm.
not gonna get you anywhere, anywhere in this day and age because every kid is on some sort of media and they all want to. More and more
Yeah.
research coming out that's saying that actually limiting media from young people, like healthy media use,
Mhm.
making them feel left out, excluded, feelings of loneliness.
Yeah.
They're getting bullied because they're not in those spaces, which is not okay, but that's what's
Yeah,
happening.
it's a reality. Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. Like, we live in a media world. So,
Mhm.
what can we do to work together to leverage that in a way that's just going to enrich the education and curiosity and creativity of our kids and lean into that while
Yeah.
also teaching them common sense and safety practices that you also adopt? Yeah.
Yeah. I think the longer we've been doing this, the more I'm convinced of the value in this approach. A lot in our space, they say just delay, delay, delay with everything. Delay, delay, delay. And
Yeah.
I definitely think we need to build up our real world competencies and physical, tangible social interactions. But at the same time, if I'm going to graduate high school into a world where I need to know how to prompt an AI chatbot and I,
Yeah.
I need to know how to visually create a video that looks
Yes.
appealing for, whatever it might be, fill in the blank. You're
Yeah.
doing a disservice to not have any of those
The foundational
experiences.
skills.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too because using these media are also developing the skills that you'll need for the jobs of the future.
yeah.
So if you're one of those kids who hasn't been exposed a lot to different forms of media, which again, like need to be developmentally optimal. Like I am not suggesting you give a 3-year-old Facebook, right? Like that's not what's happening here.
Yeah, no, don't.
Developmentally reasonable. But yeah, these tools now are so sophisticated that young people can learn. Like they know much more about the ways in which we can use AI and how AI can like benefit your daily workflow. They know so much more about video editing, like story scaffolding, and those are
Mhm, mhm.
tools and skills that they're going to need as they apply for these future jobs that will
Yeah,
just assume everybody knows that stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So if they're gonna be on tech, you talk about active versus passive screen time.
Yes.
Could you briefly introduce
Yes.
those?
Okay. So there's a big difference between active and passive media use. And research is very consistent with that passive media use, which is typically like watching television or scrolling through videos, like any type of consumption of content, screen content where you don't really need to interact. Likes don't count. In moderation, that's fine, but too much of that can lead to depression symptoms,
Mm,
anxiety.
yeah,
So you really want to be careful about the magnitude of passive media use that you as an adult or your young person experiences. Differently, there's active media use. Active is like, what if you're making the video, right?
mm,
Think about like all of the interaction and cognitive capacity it takes to decide like how you're going to move, what you're going to say, where do you need to put the caption, what are the words, right? Like that's actually
Yeah.
super educational. There's active media use could be chatting with your friends, right? Chatting with your family. There's so much research that's shown how active media use develops all sorts of really healthy, beneficial cognitive skills
Hmm.
and social skills that are really good for you. And so it's important to think about the difference between those two. Always everything in moderation, but
Yeah.
active is like the healthy, the healthy
That's
dose of
good.
media.
All screen time is not created equal.
Right,
It's so
right.
it's so
All screen
easy
time is
to
not treated equally.
yeah, we love to track screen times, talk about screen time. I know many ask us, what's the optimal screen time for this
Hmm.
age on this device?
Hmm.
I mean, we certainly point to the American
Yes.
Academy of Pediatrics and the professional recommendations, but it's not black and white. And
No.
I think that's what you're capturing here. So maximize the active, cut down on the passive. Think
Passive,
about
or
it.
at least just be mindful of it, right? Like, everybody
Yeah,
deserves
yeah.
a lazy, rainy, like, Saturday morning
Come
where you're
on.
gonna
We need
right?
that.
But also you've gotta think about, like, what's in the show. So that goes back to, like, these
Yeah.
content themes. What's in that passive media? And is that comfortable for your kid? And
Hmm.
what's comfortable for, like, one kid's not gonna be okay for the kid next door? Something I think is funny
Yeah.
that it sounds like families think this is, like, overdone and they're like, "Blah, blah, blah." But what is so true is, like, your kid is an individual. So, like,
Hmm.
what that kid needs in regards to, like, screen time limits
Yeah.
or exposure to certain themes is super different from what the exact same kid across the street the same age needs.
Hmm.
So you've gotta
Yeah.
kinda strike this, like, parenting litmus of, like, what is okay for my kid? For example, we used to let my daughter, like, play video games on Saturday mornings when she woke up. We
Okay.
quickly realized that she was super mean to us and cranky when we let
Hmm.
her do that. So we changed the rules. Like, look, you can't have any screen time exposure till afternoon. We play games, we talk,
Yeah.
a walk, eat some lunch, Then, sure, go get on the screen for a little while. Night and day with her, like,
Really?
quality and happiness. Yeah. Like, that's different for other kids, but that's what worked for ours.
Yeah. That's great. I think it is so easy to kind of get fit in the box of okay, I'm checking the
Yeah.
boxes, where and it's like, okay, recommendations and guidelines can be good, but let's keep in mind too that
But you can't,
we're all
yeah.
unique. Yeah.
I think that's where to loop it back to these big tech companies, it's really hard for them, and they are trying. It's really hard for them to they have like a lot of pressure to treat all kids as if they're one
Hmm.
and the same.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that can be really tough. That's why I think things like these parental controls and like personal use controls that continue to be innovated and developed by these tech companies is really
Yeah.
powerful. Because the more that you can dig in there and curate the experience for yourself or your kid, the more effective that's going to authentically be for just enjoying and getting the most out of the platform.
Yeah. We've talked about you talked about your daughter loving video games, and I know she's 9 right now. Most social media platforms have that guideline of being 13 before you can join. But I'm curious, she is 13 because you say you're going to wait till 13, and she says, "Mom, I'm ready. I want to get on TikTok, Instagram. There'll probably be something new. Dora, maybe. I don't know. How are you going to respond, or what's going to be? What's your play at that point?
Okay. My play, if I have a crystal ball and I look at the
Okay,
future,
yeah, you can
right?
control it.
My guess is that what I will always find a way to say yes within reason. So what I'm going to say to her is yes, and let's do a couple of things to make sure that you're prepared and then that you're safe once you're there. So what are those couple of things? Even like I have conversations with her now, I'm going to talk very directly with her about ways that she can protect herself on
Hmm,
the internet. Things like that mean if you see anything that makes you uncomfortable, please talk to someone about it, right?
yeah,
So it
yeah,
doesn't necessarily have to be me, but who is the trusted person when you see something that you can go talk to that person? And then what are the tools available to make sure that you see less of that? And are you deploying those?
hmm,
Other things, I'm really, really a stickler for, You do not need to be friends with anyone online that you do not know in real life. You don't.
Yeah.
Especially at that early teenage. There's
Yeah.
nothing good to see there, you know? And so I will even tell her now, poor kid. Now you guys are all gonna be like, oh, she's scaring your child. That I tell her things like, you know, the like junior version of catfished. I'm like,
Yeah.
look,
Yeah.
there's creeps on the internet. They're gonna pretend they're one person, but they're really somebody else. You know how you can fix getting into that situation? Don't be friends with people you don't know. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then there's other basic stuff that I want to talk to her about, like don't share your personal information, just like you wouldn't do, you know, if you went to the shopping outlets. You're not going to share your personal information with
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
If they need to know it, they'll figure it out. Like they'll call me or they'll already know how to contact you. We've got to get to a place where the answer is yes. And with these
Yes,
safety
and.
parameters, yeah. Here's the thing. Prevention science has shown over and over again that the just saying no approach never works. I don't know if you've heard of the term like iatrogenic. So iatrogenic effects, are when like the treatment makes the ailment worse. What we've seen over and over again for decades now in prevention science, that if you just say no, you can't have Instagram, no, you can't have TikTok. What that does is it just like makes those kids try to figure out like sneaky other ways to do it, right?
Yeah. It doesn't quench the desire. Yeah.
It goes back to like you want to have that parental credibility to be like not the unreasonable one, but the one who's like approachable and understands, so that when things go wrong, they really will come to you and talk to you about
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so when it comes to yes and, what
Mhm.
about AI chatbots? Like I know even recently we've seen Sam Altman said one of the top use cases for ChatGPT is therapy and like therapeutic uses. So how would you navigate that? Or how do you fit that into the yes and framework? Or does it fit in?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, AI right now, I do want to just call out, we are so new
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
technology field, right? That like if any human being tries to tell you that they know or that they've got it all figured out, like they are so full of it. They just don't.
Yeah.
None of
Yeah.
us do, right? So we're doing the best we can with like the foundational knowledge that we have. When I think about AI and chatbots in relation to kids and teens, what comes to mind is questions like who developed the core policies to train those bot models, right? It's always some core model. The model is always first trained by a human.
Yeah.
What do they do to put safety parameters in place that make this a developmentally optimal and fun experience for young people? Are they using words, right, that like are
Yeah.
comfortable and make sense, right? Because the point is to get kids to a place of joy. Are they using words that are comfortable and appropriate for a kid or a teen, point blank? Then you move into themes, just like we've got these like thematic filters on social media now, Instagram
Yeah.
specifically, and in film ratings. What are we doing to make sure that these mature themes aren't going to bubble up in this chatbot, right? So block specific themes. And I also, the third thing that I really want to learn more about, and I think companies need to be very mindful of, is reminding kids and teens that it's just a machine. That
Yeah.
bot is not your friend. It doesn't love you. It doesn't care about you, right? Like, I think that we're seeing some concerns about like psychological attachment to chatbots in ways that could get these kids into a whole boatload of like emotional challenges.
Yeah.
So baking in basic common sense things like occasionally having the chatbot just say like, "Oh, and by the way, remember I'm just a machine," or "Hey, I can't really talk about that. I'm not going to talk about it with you." Like kind of break the acting or whatever. Like
Yeah.
remind them like, "Hey, I'm a machine." I don't know where exactly this is going, but I think the people on the ground who are training those models have an extreme level of responsibility to err on the side of caution and conservativeness so that these kids can have fun and not be led down any rabbit holes that aren't safe.
Yeah. And I think a big takeaway, like you shared, is for parents, for all of us, like doing a little bit of homework as it relates to
Yeah.
the model you're using, the
Yeah.
platform you're using. Because I know there are some great ones that are set up with safeguards in place, but then there are others that, I mean, when you can do about 5 minutes of research and very quickly learn that, a chatbot, for example, that brands itself as, your personal therapy that can, take on these different personas. And then you can quickly see, oh, that's probably not a place I want my 13-year-old in.
My 13-year-old to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could keep going, but I want to honor your time, and I would love to end with some quick hitters. Okay. So I'm thinking like 10 to 15-second responses.
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay. What would be a 15-second message that you have to anyone who's working on a tech product, maybe even from a trust and safety perspective?
When in doubt or in the absence of regulation, tech companies absolutely need to just err on the side of being cautious and doing the right thing when it comes to kids. If
That's
you
great.
just do the right thing, I promise it'll save you money and make you money in the long run.
That's good. That's good.
Right?
There are positive financial repercussions from just looking out for your users.
Yes. Look out
Wow.
for your users. Yeah.
What about for parents? What's your message for parents?
Parents, find the joy in these digital spaces. Use them as opportunities to bond with your child. Have a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And know the rules and use the tools.
Know the rules and use the tools. There it
Know the
is.
rules and use the tools.
And lastly, what about students? What do you say to students?
Students, again, have fun. Enjoy these tools. Like, learn from them. If anything makes you uncomfortable or is confusing, find a trusted adult to go talk with about it. See how you can develop your own creativity and skills by enjoying these digital spaces.
I love it. Okay. In 5-10 years,
Yeah.
when we think about the future of tech, AI is rapidly developing. It can be a lot. It can be overwhelming. It can be scary. How do you feel about where we're headed?
Feel crazy optimistic.
Yeah.
I think that
Wow.
we're going to have amazing advancements in disease detection and treatment. I think for humanity as a whole that we're on to something that could just genuinely be life-changing for mankind. I also think that the jobs of the future are going to be really fun and exciting, and probably entertainment is going to be wildly amazing.
Oh, yeah. Immersive. I can only imagine.
Wildly amazing.
So one of my big takeaways from this conversation is, hey, parents, by introducing this tech in a healthy, developmentally optimal way, you are preparing your kids for the future that they're going to live in, the job that they're going to have, the way that they're going to experience the world. It will, unless they go off the grid and are an outlier, it will undoubtedly include tech.
It undoubtedly will. And their entire social environment will as well.
Yeah.
It will be a norm baked into their real life.
Real life. Hey, this is, hashtags are being phased out in many places. So this is.
I know. I just dated myself.
No, I mean, I'm with you. I use it too.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Elizabeth, for everyone who wants to follow your work and keep in touch with you, where should they go?
Okay, perfect. You can either go to www. I guess you don't even need the www anymore.
Hey.
Go to MediaGeist.com or LinkedIn /Tracy Elizabeth.
www.mediageist.com. Yeah, it's funny. You don't say the W's a lot anymore.
You don't need the W's. Yeah.
MediaGeist.com or LinkedIn, Dr. Tracy Elizabeth.
Tracy Elizabeth.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. And
Dr. Elizabeth,
you're welcome to reach out. I'm happy to talk to parents. I've been doing a lot of talks, and I appreciate this time. One thing I really am committed to is working with families to reassure them, okay, we've got these tools. It is your job as a parent to worry. When you're worried, you're doing your job, right? But how can we work together to make this a great opportunity for kids and families?
Yeah. Wow.
We're in it together.
We are. And I am honored to know cool people like you on the front lines doing the work. We're cheering you on, Dr. Elizabeth. And remember, everyone, MediaGeist.com. We're in your corner, and I'm really optimistic for where we're headed because of great minds like you who are at the forefront. So thank you, Dr. Elizabeth.
Same. Thank you so much. This was great.